White Cane Awareness Day has been around for 60 years. It's a day trying to reach people to really begin talking about our sight loss.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Diversity and Inclusion Speaker Series. We have a great topic today. We are talking all about white cane awareness, and we have two special guests. We have Sandy and we have Tony. Tony, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, hi, great. Thanks so much. So I'm Tony Stevens. I'm the Director of Communications for the American Foundation for the Blind. We're a nonprofit. It's been around about 102 years, focusing on research and advocacy and programs impacting people who are blind or have low vision. We'll break down what that means maybe a little bit during our conversation today. But yeah, so I'm here in my home office outside of Baltimore, Maryland.
Excellent. And Sandy, we have a resident here from Boulevard, Wentzville, outside of St. Louis. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Well, Tony, you're kind of you prepped us with exactly what we're going to talk about. And let me just start off with our very first question when it comes to white cane awareness. And then I'll let you all, the experts, tell me all about it. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Well, the first real question is, what is White Cane Awareness Day and why is it important?
So White Cane Awareness Day has been around for 60 so years, around 60 years. It's a day every October, and it's taken on a couple of different names in its iteration. Today, you might hear it as sort of, Global Sight Awareness Day and, Blindness Awareness Day and things like that. But, it really percolated here in the United States towards just a larger growing awareness on the presence of people who are blind or have low vision out in the community. The white cane is sort of the universal symbol. If folks ever see a white cane with a little red tip on the end, that means a person has a visual impairment, has low vision. They might be totally blind. They might have some sight, but typically that's an indicator. It's with the white cane and the red tip as a visible sign for people to see. It's reflective, and cars can see it, and headlights and things like that. But it's also a mobility aid. So it's really to promote independence and encourage people to be out into the community. Many people who are blind are losing their sight and maybe sometimes struggle to try to get off that couch and get out in the community. So it's partly awareness to make people aware of those of us in our communities that are blind or have low vision, but at the same time too, it's an important reminder that a little bit can go a long way. So that little cane can be a huge tool for independence and helping people to live a more independent life.
That's so great. Sandy, have you heard of white cane awareness?
This is the first time I've heard of white cane awareness.
Ah, and I see that you actually are holding a cane there.
Yes. Yes, this is my tool to help me to get around.
And how long have you been using it?
About a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And so before that, I'm assuming that you didn't have to use it before.
Correct. Yes, I've gradually lost my sight over the past 2 years, and now I am. This is my favorite tool. I never leave home without it.
And what's it like for you to have had to adapt to using it? How has that been? How's that transition been?
For me, it's been very easy. I was happy to obtain the cane. It helps me get around the building so I'm not bumping into things, falling. So it's a great assist tool.
Tony, what's what is the typical kind of adjustment that people have when it comes to losing their sight?
I think one of the biggest adjustments oftentimes is just that feeling of confidence. A lot of times, typically a person will be in the process of losing their sight, let's say, particularly if they're in older age years. There's a lot of common conditions that happen for people as they get older, things like age-related macular degeneration, AMD it's called, and a bunch of other conditions. So, a lot of people think blindness is maybe just this or that. It's black and it's white. It's perfect sight and then no sight. But the reality is that most people that are in sort of the community that are probably using a white cane maybe still have some residual vision. They might be on some sort of slope where they're going to continue losing their vision. Some people might start using the cane earlier on, meaning they're going to know that they'll need it more and start building up those sort of skill sets to be, independent and comfortable using it. And then there's others that are resistant to use it. They might think, a lot of people sometimes are in denial of their sight loss, and it's the kind of thing where they literally trip their way into using it. Unfortunately, they might actually physically trip and realize, I need something to help myself be more independent, and to not just be independent, but to move more freely and safely. So I think the biggest adjustment for a lot of people is really just that sort of internal voice being able to say, I am losing a major sense that I've relied on a large part of my life. And it's that recognition that, well, I still have a lot of other senses that I can use and need to leverage those and try to live, in a sense, the way that I was before. It's a challenge sometimes, I think, for people to really just sort of accept that. So oftentimes it's just the acceptance of a person losing their sight that really can sometimes stand in the way towards wanting to take that first step out of their home or out of their room, wherever they may be, and really start, sort of learning that, look, it isn't a sentence of complete isolation and exclusion from society, but I can still be part of the community around me.
Oh, that's great. That's such a great answer there. Well, so White Cane Awareness, today in October, and you said it has been called different things over the past years. How can we collectively, how can we honor that day or honor the month? How does that celebration usually happen, Tony?
So, it originally came from sort of a proclamation from Congress. There's a lot of things that go on that are advocacy related around it. What are some areas of major concern that we try to elevate in the community that, are impacting people who are blind or have low vision? So it could be simple things like getting rehabilitation in the hands of people that need it, making sure that people have access or just know that there are resources in their community. There's enormous amounts of government and state funding. There's things that, can be done through, government programs and things like that can give people the support they need to start living independently. I think another part of it too is, a general need to sort of break down the misconceptions people have towards blindness. There's been a lot of studies and research. The CDC, I was looking this morning at just some data to kind of get myself up on, what's changed since last year. And it's still, blindness and losing your sight is still seen in a more fearful way than, people losing other senses, losing their memory, other things that can happen as you get older, that oftentimes, blindness is seen as this much more harsh sort of condition to be able to have to take on and accept in your life. So, one of the other things around White Cane Awareness Day is just trying to reach people who are out in the community, the sort of unfortunate silent majority of people that are out there, to really begin talking about our sight loss, to begin breaking down that sort of acceptance, that I mentioned earlier. At the same time that we're also, like in Washington or in local state governments around the country, talking about things that are in the community, like, the curb cuts that have they're called tactile domes that a person using their white cane can detect. So they're not just walking into the street, better public transportation concerns with people that, how can they still literally get out into the community and move around if they can't drive and things like that. So, there's a slate of areas and concerns, but I think the key of what it really tries to focus in on is trying to just educate and update people and then also try to do outreach as well to people in the community. There's organizations like Lions Club International, which is a community service organization that's globally. They've been probably one of the greater champions of White Cane Day since it started. And they'll be out in the community just raising awareness of the things they do. Not just they get canes for people that need canes, but they'll also work with getting, like, high prescription corrected lenses and glasses and things like that to help people manage their sight loss as they're going through it. Because again, there's only a little over 1 million people that, when I say blind, you think close your eyes and you can't see anything. That's still a small percentage of the large majority of people out there who have such significant sight loss that they can't, drive a car anymore, and things that would be a major shift in their life as maybe they lived before losing their sight.
It's been a learning experience for me to learn about all of the resources that are available, and there are a lot. You just have to be able to reach out in the community and find out where those resources are and take advantage of them. I've been very fortunate to have a good group here in the area that's been helping me with tools. I've got my white cane, and I also have received from the resources in the area tools that can help me in my everyday goings on in this community. And I'm thankful for that. I have a recording device. I have which I can mark my medicines, so I can keep track of what medicines I take, and help me navigate the facility here. And I appreciate all of those resources, and I always look for other things that might help along the way. And I'm very grateful for all of the assistance I get.
That's so great. Tony, you were going to ask a question, I think, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, Sandy as well. I mean, I learned how to use a white cane when I was 15 years old. I've always been legally blind, and then I went totally blind when I was 15. And it took a while to just get used to it, to get comfortable. I'm curious, I mean, Sandy, what your own experience was like in a sense. Was there hesitation? How long do you feel like it got to where that confidence started to maybe increase, to where you weren't so nervous trying to walk around places where things could pop out, and, hazards and things like that?
Oh, I was very happy to receive the cane, and it's helped me. It's given me confidence. I don't have any trouble going anywhere in this facility with my cane, and I appreciate it. It is a great tool to use and have, and if you're outside walking, it helps you. I think everybody should be using a white cane that has vision problems, because they are a great tool.
How long did it take you, Sandy, to feel comfortable using the cane in your space there at the community? How long did that take? It wasn't overnight, was it?
Just about.
Really?
Just about. Yeah, really, maybe a day or so, or because I came into the community seeing, and I gradually lost my sight. I have just a little bit of vision, but it doesn't amount to much. And the cane has really increased my confidence of getting around the facility here. I'm not afraid to go anywhere with this cane, and it is a great tool to have.
Well, and I'm sure it is, you having seen the community before the site started to fully go away, probably
Yes.
helped build that map in your head. Tony, you were just saying that you've been fully blind since 15. Now, I'm imagining that the things that we have put in place for vision impaired has changed since you were 15 to today. Could you potentially talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, very much so. It's there's been a few different, in terms of just the cane and mobility. When I lost my sight, there were still, very defined curb cuts because it was before the ADA. So, weren't even curb cuts yet. And in most places, a few cities around the country had them, but not where I was in Atlanta. And, suddenly those distinctive curbs that you would run into just started to disappear, and you could end up just literally walking into the streets. That's like when I talked about how we had to start advocating for, things like the little tactile dome strips and things like that.
Which can I interject real quick, Tony?
Yeah,
I
sure.
didn't realize that's what those are for until just now.
Yeah. It's the thing that we've, had to fight for in communities. That's why they're on, I take the subway a lot in Washington, D.C., and we, work to try to get those on the subway platforms and a lot of places to just have, the cane is in a sense an extension of your sense of touch, right? That's the idea. There's different ways some people might use them. There's standard practices in the way that people use their cane. Some will hold it out in front of them and tap left to right. People that might have some residual vision left might mainly use it for trying to identify like stairs and things like that. If you're a person that has lost sight in one eye, you won't have depth perception anymore. So things like curbs and stairs and things won't be as visible to you. That idea of depth. It really, in a sense, there's been a lot of changes just in the way that people think about designing communities. Even with, if you're trying to cross an intersection, they'll now have ramps with sometimes, a curb that is a 90-degree cut coming up from the street that helps you kind of line up with your straight, your direct line across a crosswalk might be. Those are things that advocates who are blind or have low vision have been working with city developers to kind of think through things that can, where there's a lot of times a rounded curb at a crosswalk, you might not always know where exactly the other side of the crosswalk is. We now have accessible pedestrian signals as well, which are the little buttons you can push at curbs that'll beep to let you know it's safe to cross. But they're also designed in a way to line you up to know what direction is the other one on the other side of the street, so you don't accidentally, walk diagonally across a busy intersection and end up in the middle of the street. So, it's a lot of silent things going on behind the scenes in the way that we think about designing our communities to make them more accessible. And the cane is in a sense just one of those tools. So it's been exciting since, that was in 1989. It's been exciting to sort of see the way that cities have been developing themselves, and not just facilities, but facilities, not just cities, but facilities as well. Places like, community residences and things like that have really tried to work towards a common word used in the disability rights space is accessible or universal design. How can we create things to include more people that have varying needs? And it's been exciting to see over the past few decades that, recognition, particularly with the baby boomer generation living longer years and by nature, sight loss usually occurs, pretty significantly for older age populations. But it's been nice to sort of see the way that communities and cities and people like that are thinking more about these universal design principles that really opens the door when you're using the white cane to make it even more convenient, more smooth to move around wherever you may be. Sidewalks that are, well groomed with, like grass and things like that on the side, so you can follow the curb. I'm sure, Sandy, you probably use the cane a lot, maybe trailing a wall or, kind of following through and making sure that there's not a lot of obstacles and hallways and things like that will kind of slow you up where your cane gets pinned in and things like that. So, things that communities are doing to really help, sort of make it more accessible for people that need adaptive tools like a cane.
I love how informative this is, Tony. I didn't know a lot of that, honestly, much of that. So that's really in really cool information. Now, is there a term in which that we should be using when it comes to the blind or vision impaired? Is there an actual specific term we should be using that is preferred? Or
that's a good question, because it's been a point of a lot of debate and discussion within the community, within the disability community, right? Blindness is one of those unique conditions because the word blind is used in a lot of other ways, right? Society is blind. I can't tell you how many emails I get by people literally wanting to try to sell me manufactured blinds for windows, right? Like, I mean, it's
yeah.
the idea of like, and again, it goes back to that concept too, that oftentimes people will think blind is just close your eyes and everything's dark. And that's not even the case. Even someone who has what's called NLP, or no light perception, or they might even have their eyes removed from, brain tumor or things like that, that can happen. They will still have some sort of sensation. The brain is still kicking in the back occipital lobe where all the octave nerves go to. And there's even sometimes lights and colors and sensations that people have even after maybe they don't have eyes anymore. But, in terms of the definition, we have moved in our society to not saying a blind person, because that can even, be seen as maybe a negative. Like, you're blind to the facts, you're blind to the truth, you're blind to reality. Love is blind, right? So many uses of it. So, oftentimes they'll say a person who is blind, right? That blindness is a condition. But we've moved a lot more too as well towards saying blind or has low vision, which essentially means, a person may not be able to process what's coming into their eyes. If we say they're visually impaired, that means something is wrong with the physical eye. But someone can still be low vision if maybe they had a stroke. That didn't necessarily impact the eye, that impacted the brain, but they've had sight loss, right? They can no longer be processing the information coming in through their eyes. So it's not technically a vision impairment as much as we'll say they're low vision, in that their visual acuity has been restricted for a number of reasons. So oftentimes we'll say a person who's blind or has low vision, and it's the idea that they are still themselves a human being, a person, not defined by some adjective that may be pejoratively used in our society as, being a negative. So that's where we kind of go. But you'll still hear as a group like blind people, a blind community, and things like that. But oftentimes at American Foundation for the Blind, we'll try to lead with that language that, we're people first. I'm sure Sandy will say she's a person who, just has sight loss, right? But you're still the same Sandy that you were a few years ago. You haven't magically morphed into someone else, I imagine, Sandy, have you?
No.
Yeah.
I'm still me.
Yep. And that's what we try to get to when we say this people first, right? We're still Sandy, we're still Tony.
Yes.
And but we just have, a visual impairment for some. It might be low vision for other conditions, or they might be totally blind because of, major trauma or things like that.
Well, then how should somebody who how should somebody approach you while walking down the street? Like, how should somebody do that?
I mean, I'll throw it to Sandy to just, because you've probably lived in a community where there's been people around you.
Yes.
And my hope is they haven't been, treating you more, but at the same time, I still get people, I'm very independent, and we'll still get sometimes the person that wants to grab you by the elbow and drag you across the street. And you're like, wait, I can do this. I can do this. I mean, we want to make sure people feel comfortable and independent, and so, approaching someone who's blind, just like anybody else, I don't know about you, Sandy, but I like to be treated like I have my whole life, right?
Yes, I do too. But I find people have a tendency to want to grab your arm and pull you along.
Yeah.
Instead of asking how they can help. They just assume that's what, I need is to be led along. And that's not the case all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it might be that you're trying to follow a particular wall because you're trying to find a door or something like that, and people might literally distract you if they just grab you and things. I think the best situation, and you sort of mentioned it, Sandy, is like asking that person, look, are you all good? Is there anything I can do to help you? And one of the things about any condition in your life and accepting that condition is the hardest thing for me was learning how to ask for help. You learn to do that, and if you need help, you'll ask for help. So
yes, that's true.
What would somebody do?
Ask.
So let's say that let's say we could go back in time for a couple of years, just 2 years, and we could talk to Sandy, Tony, about the first time that she is starting to experience some more of this sight loss. What is some kind of I guess tips or advice that you would give Sandy or anyone else who might be on that journey of losing their sight?
I would say first and foremost, is it an inconvenience? Yes. But throughout our whole lives as people, life always throws us inconveniences and challenges, right?
Yeah.
For some, it might be more severe. Different people rely on their senses in different ways. But, you can still live a completely wonderful and free and independent life. I take it up to, when you wake up in the morning and the sun hasn't come up yet and you're in your room and it's completely dark, you still feel like yourself, right? I mean, life hasn't changed for the average sighted person each time they do that. You can learn to adapt. You can learn to find your way through the room in the dark. If the power goes out and you need to try to, go check a light switch or something, for the average person, right? You can kind of learn not to stub your toe all the time or things like that. You feel comfortable in your own space. I think for someone that's losing their sight, get comfortable in your space, right? And get comfortable with just knowing that, for me, it is still a completely fulfilling life. And in some sense, I feel like my life is maybe more enriched because I lost my sight. It's had to force me for different reasons to, think of the world differently, right? To be more inclusive of people around me. And also too, like I said, to need to know to ask for help. I talked a minute ago about if there's a person crossing a street or something, you kind of grab them. I mean, if you see someone with a cane and maybe they're not that experienced and clearly they're walking into traffic, then by all means, don't just take the idle path. I mean, maybe more vocally offer assistance loudly, say, excuse me, this is, or that there's some sort of obstacle right in front of you. But, I think for the person experiencing that sight loss, oftentimes it's slow and gradual. It helps to find other people that have sort of literally walked ahead of you with the experience. There's a lot of support groups. Communities can set up residences, and residents and communities can set up, sort of support groups to help. It's good with any changing condition in life to have someone to talk to. And so, and once you sort of get towards that acceptance and understanding, then you start to rebuild a life that can be very independent and very freeing. And that's using your cane. I also have my guide dog, a CNI dog here on the side, a German Shepherd who's snoring. And, you can begin to take those steps to become more independent. But I think the first thing is just having someone to talk to, like with any major life-changing thing, and knowing that the outcome is not as bad as maybe you thought it was.
Any thoughts, Sandy?
Yeah, I started being very proactive in seeking out what was available for us people that are losing our sight. And it's been an education of what is out there in the world for us to take advantage of. And I try to do that at every opportunity. And there's a lot of tools, and I try to make use of them. And I seek out organizations that help. And I just, be proactive in taking care of yourself.
Well, and you kind of talked about or briefly touched on, Tony, several things that you that there are out there, resources and technology and things like that. I mean, you just said that you had a seeing eye dog, a German Shepherd there. You got the white cane as well, the beeps on to cross the road whenever it comes to at the intersections, as well as the 90-degree curb cuts with the little domes on them. Mm-hmm. Is there other things out in the world that are like that to help?
There's a lot of resources out there. I mean, folks can find, we list a lot of the organizations on our website, afb.org, for American Foundation for the Blind. There's an organization out of Louisville, Kentucky that gets funding from the federal government. They're called the American Printing House for the Blind and Visually Impaired. They produce all the school books for children in Braille and large print and things like that. But they also do a ton and just sort of connecting people as well with resources. I believe they have a 1-800 number. That's aph.org, for the American Printing House.org. Typically, each state's going to have a Department of Rehabilitation that's funded through the Department of Health and Human Services by the federal government. So that money goes down to the states, and that money is spent out in the various communities. There's a program called the Older Individuals with Blindness Program, which the National Centers for Independent Living, or NICL, NCIL.org, has these centers in every state all around the country. They'll have people on staff that can even, or the local rehabilitation centers for visually impaired in some of the larger cities. There'll be people that can come out and show you how to use the cane, right? And not just show you, but eventually you can work your way up on cane use, where you can catch the bus and go to the local store, take care of your shopping, independent living skills, things to know how can you still cook? How can you still do, like you were saying earlier, Sandy, about, understanding your medicines, being able to determine, your medicines. Pharmacies now have accessible drug labeling, where some will talk, they'll be tactile and things like that. There's a lot of resources out there. The best thing probably to do on a local level is oftentimes you'll have, a center for aging in your community, or something through the State Department of Vocational Rehabilitation that can put you in touch to find out there's grant money available to help you get some aids for if you're 55 years or older, called I mentioned earlier, the Older Individual with Blindness Grant. So states have that money, and then there's people tied to that will come and show you how to use technology. Things like, accessible phones. I can use my phone now and hold it up to something, and it'll tell me what it is. It'll read it. And it's so a lot of these tools that are available now that have significantly advanced, thanks to everyone jumping on the iPhone bandwagon, and even more the older phones, flip phones, will even have accessible phones that people can use, that can also be a huge assistive technology tool for them in addition to their white cane. So, but the best thing to do is probably, reach out to your local state government, community government, and find out, who in that community would be able to work with putting you in touch with the people that can help you navigate sometimes the bureaucracy of social services to help people live more independent lives, even though they have the onset of a disability.
Such great information, Tony and Sandy. Is there anything that we kind of had missed that you want to share with our viewers, Sandy, about your journey? Is there anything you wanted to share kind of to wrap this up with our...
Well, mine's been a slow journey in losing my blindness. I still have a little bit of vision, but I've tried to get in touch with as many resources as I can find to help me with tools and adjusting to the loss of sight. So take advantage of what's out there.
Yeah, and Tony, just said that, like, you literally can find organizations that will bring somebody to you to help you kind of learn how to use these tools for the first time, or help make you better at using them, or anything like that. Again, this is all information that is fully new to me and very educational in that sense. Tony, is there anything else that we might have missed, or that you want to make sure that our viewers, that our listeners here, know about as we walk away from this conversation?
I think knowing that you're not alone in this, particularly for people that live in, that are older age adults that are moving into community residences. I've seen numbers from 15 to 47% have significant sight loss in those communities. Yeah. It's part of getting older, right? So you're not alone. And so finding out in your community, there are local organizations that are consumer groups that get together and have meetings in communities, in local towns. There's the two big ones. There's one called the National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind. They're both two really solid groups that advocate in Washington, D.C., but they also have local chapters, and will even sort of do things where, like, people will come out and demo, they'll show off their technology. You can go to, sometimes they'll meet at like local libraries, or if in a large residence, there might even be a chapter there. But yeah, so, you can go to those at nfb.org or acb.org. Both organizations have 1-800 numbers, so you can reach out and get those tools. I believe NFB will even, send out canes to people. And then ACB does an excellent job of just, really trying to advocate, particularly in the older age communities, to let people know that they're not alone. Again, it goes back to that, finding someone to talk to. And when you found someone to talk to that has walked through where you are going through now, it can give you, it's almost like being able to take someone's hand and not feel like you're walking alone. So would encourage people to check out those resources. And yeah, so it's, again, it's not a sentence. It can still be a completely wonderful life. I love what I hear, and the world just sounds wonderful day by day. And I'm thankful for that my hearing is still good, even though I played in a rock band as a kid. But yeah, it is, it's the thing of just finding a community. And so, I would encourage people just to not be afraid to seek that out.
Yes. Same here. And check out your facility. If you live in a senior facility, talk to the people there. They can also help with things that you might need, or where to go to find things. And so,
or even like
use every resource available to you.
Exactly. And even if it's talking with the person that does local programs, if you have a movie night, ask them to turn on the audio description so people can hear it, that has an audio described track that also describes people that maybe can't see the screen what's going on. So, be a voice in your community, and you might be surprised. You're going to find other people that are saying, I'm also going through that as well. So thank you for, thank you, they might say to you. So don't be afraid.
Yeah. Tony, what instrument did you play?
I played the bass, played my way through college. So I'm an old bass player. So.
Oh, how incredible. Oh,
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. And Tony, really appreciate the insights, the information, such a great thing to learn about. Before we go, one last question, Tony, what is the name of your German Shepherd? Can you tell us?
His name is Nougat, like the caramely treat. So he is Nougat. Where you at, bud? He's I don't know where he's wandered off now. He finds me boring whenever I have to talk. But yeah, each litter they have so many dogs they go through that each one gets a letter of the alphabet. So he had Nancy and Nina, and he was Nougat. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, just that classic Ren 1010 look. So.
Well, thank you all so much. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in on another diversity and inclusion speaker series. This one, of course, was on white cane awareness. We will see you the next time we have another one. Thank you again, Tony. Thank you, Sandy, so much. We'll see you all next time.
Welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. You will.
And I think to myself,